Well, good evening, one and all. Welcome to our YouTube live stream. Do let us know if you're there. Do get involved in the comments. And of course, as always, do let us know if I'm too loud. My guest is too quiet. My guest is too loud and I'm too quiet. There's only one way to judge this is by your comments in the live stream. Right, joining us then this evening, double game week, Crystal Palace on Tuesday evening. John, Saints FC podcast. Firstly, how are you? And as a small tradition up on the Saints FC podcast. What are you drinking?
I'm very well, Freddie. Although I have been better. Look at this. This is the state I'm in at the moment. That is Bavaria, 0.0%. Dry January, mate. Dark times.
Unbelievable. I can't believe what I'm seeing, hearing. Well,
Mate,
I guess
I've got to say though, like this, we're 19th of January. Last time I did Dry January, I made it to the 6th. And then I went and watched a comedy show. It was so bad that we went to the pub afterwards just to deal with it. So I'm doing well.
Is that what London life is like? You can expect bad comedy shows.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, you just have everything in London, don't you? There's loads of good stuff and there's loads of crap stuff as well.
Well, for the benefit of everybody else, there goes the crack. This is a Kokomo by the Horns Brewing Company, passion fruit and grapefruit. A nice little Sunday session.
Hey, that just that's so much better than my Bavaria 0.0. I mean, like if you are going to be doing Dry January, the non-alcoholic beers, they are better than they were back in the old days.
Yeah, well, at least you can get some flavours still now and then.
Yeah,
non-alcoholic beers.
Nanny State would be my number one. I'd go to.
Brewdog, great
yeah.
beer, like that. So this was from the Flavorly. We have no sponsorship, but if you want to sign up to Flavorly, let us know. I can give you a discount code. Anyway, let us know if you're drinking at home. Get involved in the comments, and of course, fire through any questions, predictions, lineups, etc. Firstly, then, John, let's get to yesterday. Wolves at home. I mean, this was a typical football cliche game of two halves. Let's start at the very top though. Unchanged 11, and they were rewarded for their efforts against Leicester.
Yeah, and I think that's fair enough. Like if you're going to go away to Leicester and beat them, you deserve to stay in the side. I mean, also the game against Leicester. Not only did we beat them, we were the much better side throughout the entirety of the game, pretty much. I mean, Leicester got into it a bit more in the second half, but it's fair enough. I think the team that he's settled on is a good team. Despite yesterday's result, I still think it's a good team. Yeah, it's got some of the frailties that we've known about for a long time, but I don't think that's really a surprise to everyone. It was a little bit of a jolt back to reality, but I don't think it was a huge surprise that we've still got those weaknesses.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm not subscribing to the overreactions. I guess you see it most of the time, in fact, on social media. I guess that's what it's built for. Social media is for overreaction football fans, But it was a terrific first half, though, wasn't it? I mean, we had an urgency. We pressed them into mistakes, and Bednarek on the score sheet as well. It kind of bounces through from Ward-Prowse free kick, and it was a great technique to kind of hook it over into the top corner.
Yeah, it was a really tidy finish, actually. I'm quite a big fan of Bednarek. I don't think he's the world's greatest centre back, but I like him. I like his attitude to the game. He plays. I don't know. He plays like there's a little bit of joy in him, which is quite nice to see footballers do. And so, really good to see him get that goal. And I mean, he finished it really coolly, didn't he? There weren't like loads of different things he could do there, but the technique to kind of like curve it round past the keeper, he was pretty stationary, It was a really, really nice finish. So I was really pleased for Jan Bednarek. Really good finish. Always good to see him smiling and reading away. And Jack Stevens as well. I think those two are actually really getting on well with each other at the moment, which is good to see. Starting to build a bit of a relationship. Although, if we have to talk about the relationship in the second half of the game, Freddie, then there's some problems there as well.
Yeah, and we'll get to that just shortly as well. And let us know where you're on the world. Jeffrey is drinking coffee until Saints figure out how to keep a lead. Well, I mean, we have in recent weeks, but it all went a bit pear-shaped yesterday. Right, Mark adds to our comments here. The much maligned Cedric coped much better than Bertrand with Traore. Mind you, he is like Antonio on steroids, a real beast. get out of our system for Tuesday. Adama Traore was obviously the danger man yesterday.
Yeah.
I think he bullied most of our defenders yesterday.
We're not very good. I mean, Mark is true. Like, it's the same with Antonio against Saints in the game against West Ham not that long ago. That sort of kind of like dynamic, pacey, but most importantly, really strong, really muscly forward. We do struggle with, it's the same with, like, if you go back to Lukaku, always struggled with him. Those built forwards, we definitely don't like. I mean, I'm sure Mark is not suggesting anything on the steroids. It's just I think just to make sure there's no libel here, Freddie. But Traore, he's quite beast. And it's funny with Cedric, because I think you put Cedric against the man. If you've got people attacking him down the wing, and he's like one-on-one sort of tackling, that's where I think Cedric is actually quite good. It's actually worse when Cedric's on the opposite side of the main kind of winger threat, because then when the crosses come in, that's where the ball goes over him at the back post, and that's where the problem is with Cedric. But it's the same against Aston Villa. He dealt with Jack Grealish really well, coming down his side. So it's good to see Cedric dealing with that sort of thing. Ultimately, he ain't going to grow any taller, so there's always going to be the problem of the back pace. But it was no surprise, really, that we struggled to deal with Traore. We're not the first team that's done that, and we don't like playing against people like him, really.
Yeah, I mean, Cedric did, find it difficult against Traore. We know what to expect with Adama Traore. Direct sort of player. Doesn't go anywhere else but forward. Doesn't cut in. Doesn't cut out left. Doesn't cut inside, outside. We know which way he's going to go, and that's towards the goal. And Cedric, much maligned in the past. His capabilities to defend often questioned. But a big shout out to Jeffrey, who's joining us in Kansas City. There you are. Good afternoon to you, Jeffrey, in Kansas City. And Mark adds to your comments on Traore's build. Right, I guess towards our let's add some positivity to this. Let's make this podcast a bit like a game of 2 halves, a bit like the game on Saturday.
Okay.
Goals in the first half. Shane Long, he loves scoring in January. I mean, it was about this time last season he scored against Leicester. I think he scored his first goal in about 18 months, last season against somebody else. But it was his first goal of the season. Glancing header, getting in between the two defenders. Armstrong, I've got to give credit to him here. Actually, a chap behind me sitting in the stand, he said Armstrong was ripe for a goal. And then literally 30 seconds later, keeps it alive. Cedric then whips it across, and Shane Long, there he is.
Yeah, it's funny what you say about Shane Long in January, because he obviously got that goal against Huddersfield as well in the FA Cup that was ruled out for the armpit hair being slightly further offside than the opponents. So yeah, I mean, maybe he's got his scoring boots on, although again when we get into the second half we're going to have to question that. But if Shane, when Shane Long goes on these runs and he adds goals to his game, that normally comes with a good Saints run as well. Danny Ings didn't score for the first time, in centuries, obviously yesterday. So it'd be good if Shane Long can start picking up and start banging in the goals, because he is dynamic. He's got a lot about his game, Shane Long. We've talked about it on the podcast many times over the couple of years that we've been doing it. And Freddie, we've discussed it before, but he brings a lot. And then when he has goals as well, he's an absolute nightmare. We're talking about the likes of Antonio and Traore being a nightmare. Shane Long is one of those forwards that I bet you defenders hate to see on the opposite team sheet, because he's a pain in the backside. He's niggly. He's running hard. He knows how to get. He knows a little bit about the dark arts as well. Shane Long. It's just his finishing is a bit off sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I guess I want to be honest here. Actually, I've recently been reading Peter Crouch's book, and he mentioned Shane Long in his in one of his chapters, and he said, I think he's got a point here. Shane Long is a selfless striker. He's the sort of striker you don't expect to score, and that's against any sort of striker's DNA to not score. I mean, strikers want the glory; they want to score goals, but Shane Long. I think the commentator said yesterday, from an unlikely source, Shane Long's centre forward.
Yeah, I bet Shane Long didn't like hearing that on Match of the Day when he watched it back. But It's funny as well. But there's another ex-Saints player who's doing that in the Premier League at the moment. That's David McGoldrick. You look at what he does for Sheffield United, and he's working hard, and he's opening the chances for his colleagues to come in and his teammates to come in and score goals. And Shane Long does the same. Danny Ings will kind of sweep in and do that. Shane Long is working the opposition really hard. I've been impressed with Che Adams as well. Actually, I think he's been doing similar things for Saints when he's been on. Got that assist against Leicester. So it's funny to think that strikers aren't always about goals, but sometimes there is more to goals. But hey, we don't need to have this argument today, Freddie, because Shane Long actually got that goal.
Unbelievably against the odds.
If he got his brace, though, that would have put the question marks past, wouldn't it?
Well, to be honest, I mean, if we look at it, we were, I think, fair to say, cruising at half time, and perhaps this is where perhaps a bit of complacency and naivety come in. I just want to add Kieran's comment here on screen. Despite a good first half defensively, where we're naive, second half and let Traore and Wolves do what they want. Ralph needs some signings right now, not maybe for one of our form or two fullbacks or centre back needed. But I think I mentioned this a few times to people outside the ground yesterday and at the pub after the game. I think this is it. I mean, complacency, naivety is what it comes down to. And it is, as we said at the top of the show, a cliche game of two halves.
Yeah, it was a bit. Do you know what? I'm starting to develop a theory about Saints, right? If you look at how this season has gone, after the 9-0 defeat, it's a bit of a wake-up call. We had the game against Everton, and Saints really had to go to the depth. I think before then, we were kind of sleepwalking into a relegation battle. And then it was like, bam, here's the big wake-up call. No, you're in a relegation battle. You really need to sort yourselves out. And it's kind of following that, then the international break, that they really started sorting themselves out. And then I think we have this knack to kind of get carried away. Do you know what I mean? Like, we've won 3 Premier League games in a row. We're kind of top 3 in the form tables after 6 games, after 8 games, after 10 games going back. Really, really good form. And I think suddenly the Saints players believe the hype. They're like, oh yeah, we are a team that should be going for Europa League. They believe their own hype, and then they stop concentrating. And I think, we saw that at half time against Wolves. Like, I'm sure that all the players in the change room weren't thinking, right, how are we going to get more goals? How are we going to make sure that we win this? I think they're just thinking, wow, this is great. We're going to win our 4th game in a row, thinking about European qualification. We have this mental block where we kind of are happy to go away in the fairies and sleepwalk. And I think in a way that second half was a bit of a wake-up call of, you haven't done this yet, Saints. You do need to get to your 40 points, although I think Hassan Hutt was saying 36 points is what he reckons we need. And then you can kind of push on from there. So it didn't surprise me. I don't think it probably surprised anyone in St Mary's, apart from the fact, unless the people it would have surprised would have been like the players. They've been getting carried away, thinking that actually, okay, we're going to be pushing towards Europe, which we could be. But you look at the best teams like the way Liverpool are playing at the moment. When do they switch off? They don't. They kind of keep going. It doesn't matter who they're playing against. Doesn't matter what the form is. They just keep on winning, and they're relentless. And that's what Saints never quite get to that stage. They kind of start to believe their own hype and start to hope things are going to be easy and relaxing, and then that's when it all goes horribly wrong.
Well, Luke adds to the conversation here. The one positive about Saturday's game is that teams have to work hard to beat us at the moment, whereas before it was way too easy. Good to see others chipping in with goals. And I think, let's extend on that a little bit. I think we've almost become almost a little bit too reliant on Danny Ings recently to put the ball in the back of the net.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, if you've got a striker in a rich vein of form, just let him carry on scoring. That's absolutely fine. But yeah, good to see 2 different names on the score sheet. I'd like to see Stuart Armstrong get in amongst the goals. Nathan Redmond as well. He's due some goals. I thought he actually had a really good game as well yesterday. He's been a bit up and down recently, Redmond, but it's nice to see him kind of work. Well, he never really stops working hard, but it's funny. Do you think maybe with Redmond, with the focus off him on Danny Ings, is kind of means he shies away on the pitch a little bit more, doesn't try as much?
I don't know. maybe Redmond's almost a little bit reluctant to take the shot, to take the opportunity. I mean, last year he thought he had almost a shoot on sight, philosophy, but this year I think he's going back to the sort of Redmond in his shell a little bit. The season before last, taking too many touches on the ball, trying to do the fancy work, making it look cute against the defender, trying to beat him across the line. And then ultimately it comes, two touches.
Yeah. If only that one had gone in though at the end with went off the crossbar.
Mm.
It is good to see some of the other players getting into the goals. It's a shame that Shane Long didn't follow up his goal, with that header and getting that one in. There's more goals to come from this team. I don't think we need to be too worried, right, about Danny Ings. His form will drop off. It's impossible for that form to continue for the whole rest of the season. But you look at the likes of Armstrong, Redmond, Shane Long, Che Adams, they're all due more goals. And if we keep on kind of pushing, keep on having the high XG, I don't know how much you talk about XG on the ugly inside, Freddie. But, if we continue to create quality chances, especially when we're on this good run of form, we will see other players getting goals.
Well, for those that aren't following too many of John's statistics on the Saints FC podcast, XG is expected goals. And I saw it flash up on Match of the Day last night, unexpectedly. To be honest, I didn't expect the game to be first on the show last night, but it was.
I think 2 weeks in a row, Freddie. What's going on? This
unbelievable.
It must be the first time in history.
Different sides of the spectrum, though, I think, to be fair. I think it flashed up something like 0.8 for Southampton, and then about 2.5 for Wolves. So, I mean, ultimately, it is the scoreline in the top left that counts. And so, let's get to the goals then. And it's another cliche that Wolves came out in that second half. They wanted it more. They had more urgency, and I think I actually witnessed them come out sort of 5 minutes before the Saints team come out. They Wolves were doing drills on the touchline, doing little bursts, and get straight to the goal. Then it was Neto who opens the scoring for Wolves. Bednarek dives in, misses the challenge on Traore. Is allowed to pick the pass in real time. I think I actually stood up, appealed for the handball, albeit in vain. I'm not sure the referee could hear us back at the back of the Itchen North, but it almost looked like it was handball in the stadium. Defenders almost stopped, and McCarthy was made to look silly as Neto. It bounced off his chest in the end, albeit after the highlights in the pub after the game. But McCarthy stood there like a statue.
It was a funny one, wasn't it? Because I think statuesque is probably the right word. Like no matter how many times you watch it back, like Bednarek was almost like the last Saints player to make a move, which all went horribly wrong. Totally mistimed it and misjudged it. And then as the ball comes in, it was just a total shambles, wasn't it? Everyone was ball watching. Nobody was chasing after it. And it just wasn't even difficult for Neto, was it? It was just easy. There was time, there was space, and we just weren't putting enough on it. I mentioned in my Saints chat with my friends and family who support Saints about Alex McCarthy, and it's almost situations like that where you need the big personality in the box to be shouting, to be organising. Because that one, it just looked like nobody knew where they were supposed to be, what they were supposed to be doing, and it was a gift for Wolves. And it was an annoying time as well, because 53 minutes, you knew then that they had plenty of time to get themselves properly back into the game. You concede that in the 80th minute and you might hang on. But, with Saints form, conceding that in the 53 minutes was dangerous.
Well, this was the moment, I guess, the game changed, and the autistic angler on YouTube had don't mind us losing, but it was shocking to see how our game changed so much in the midst of that game. And, I think at 2-0, we thought we were cruising, complacent at half-time, and then Wolves came out with the urgency to press us into mistakes and, given so much time and space in the ball, we can't afford that. I mean, we thought that Wolves almost be out on their feet at the halftime because they played the midweek game. They played that replay against Man United. A lot of them went off kind of with a knock or a doubt for fitness, and they come out raring to go, fresh as a daisy, and push us into mistakes. And it's another clumsy mistake that allows them in for their second goal, their equaliser. I mean, I think there was no question about it in the stands. About 30,000 said, with the hands in the head, including myself, so yeah, that's a penalty. That's no question. But it took almost 5 minutes to get to that decision from the video replays. I mean, if you look at it closely, I've watched it back a dozen times already. Somebody, Nick has almost suggested that is no penalty, but both Stevens and Cedric wipe out Jimenez. I mean, the referee calls out for a corner, but I mean, Cedric kind of barges Johnny whilst Stevens takes his lead. It's like a tag team double up.
Yeah, I mean, we're at kind of like real time speed, it looks like the most clear cut penalty in the world. From the discussion afterwards, the reason why I think there's maybe some question marks over and why it took so long in the stadium was the question on whether he had any chance of really getting to the ball, because Cedric got to the ball before him and was shielding him. And then, which I can see the argument there, if it was just Cedric, but I think it was Jack Stevens, wasn't it, kind of clattering in as well. I don't. I mean, Jack Stevens was nowhere near the ball anyway. I don't think we really need to debate it. Ralph Hasenhüttl didn't think it was a penalty. I thought it was. You thought it was. Pretty much everyone in the stadium thought it was. So, and that's what they gave in the end. Just go back to the point from the autistic angler as well. It's kind of like the point I was making earlier about us daydreaming a bit, us sleepwalking. I think Saints lost their concentration. Wolves were there to be finished off, and if we'd kind of continued the start of the second half in the same vein that we'd played the first half, we'd have had no problem in beating them. 3. We might have even got a fourth, but it was that sleepwalking as well. And I've seen as well Jeffrey Wells has made another comment there about missing a leader at the back. I think for the first goal, you can definitely say that was the case. I was speaking to Carl Anker earlier in the week. He's the Saints journalist on The Athletic. And one of the observations he's made about Jack Stevens is that he's always shouting and always talking at the back. So I think Jack Stevens could potentially become that player, but he also needs to build up on his experience and his confidence as well. And whilst he might be talking and trying to be the leader all the time, whether the other players follow or not, I think he needs to demonstrate that he is the defender that should be followed or leading the line and the conversation.
Yeah, I think we've seen a little bit of that over the last couple of weeks. Getting on the score sheet against Aston Villa, a couple of clean sheets, organising some of his peers. But I think, as you say, rules were there for the second. Had we got an early goal in that second half, I think that would have put them to bed. 2-0 was a dangerous scoreline to come back. When they get the first one, they're going to get the momentum to carry on to get the second one. If we had got a third, I think that would have been game over. But we've mentioned earlier as well, Nathan Redmond hit the bar. Had he been a yard or two behind where he struck the ball, that could have gone in off the crossbar, similar to sort of, Jake Voken's, a couple of weeks ago. But this is the Wolves' third goal then. There were calls for offside, but the VAR calls it for handball. I didn't see any handball in the stadium. I was certain Traore was offside, but again, watching it back on the replays and the highlights, how wrong was I? I mean, it was a quick counter-attack. Traore key again.
I'll tell you what, Freddie, these VAR checks, they do occasionally go to show, don't they, how wrong you can have it in the stadium. You can be 100% sure of something, and then when it comes back, you're like, I was actually totally wrong. I mean, the Shane Long goal that he scored against Huddersfield, I was like dead in line with him, at the side of the pitch. Like, I couldn't have had a better position to judge the offside. And I was like, he was onside by a mile. I was thinking good metre and a half. Totally wrong on that one as well.
Luke's got the spot on comment here. VAR was spotted on Saturday. Unfortunately, we've had it all good so far with VAR, but it was our turn to get the poor luck.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we can have too many complaints with VAR this season, Saints. We've been okay so far. And I think that the handball in the build-up to the third goal, it was too many phases. Is it like the phase of play or too many touches back? Someone's trying to explain to me. I haven't looked at it. I haven't picked up the rule book to verify this, but there is some suggestion that because he wasn't the player who assisted the ball, it didn't count. But I'm not sure about that. I'd have thought it'd be in the phase of play, but
yeah, I wasn't sure about it at the time. I wasn't sure why they called it back for handball. Definitely like offside to me, but it was 2 against 5. It was 2 attackers from Wolves. Traore bullying, 2 Saints defenders to allow to cut it back to Jimenez, and it just showcased our weakness, I guess. Literally, kind of the strength of the defenders come into question here. But As Dave Merrington mentioned on the commentary, we've squandered a 2-goal lead. It's not quite as dramatic as last season, where we lost almost sort of 30 points from winning position. This season, it's only 10 points.
It's nice to improve in something. I think, was it in the calendar year, it's 42 points, isn't it? Or like in the last 12 months. It's just, that's terrifying, isn't it? Let's play this game here, Freddie. If we had 42 extra points, I suppose 10 this year would make a huge difference. But if we're talking about like a massive lift up the table if we could hold on to Leeds.
It just showcases a bit of our fragility, to hang on to Leeds. But right, Edward. On that note, then, oops, that's the Welsh Gamers comment. Edward's comment. Here we go. On to Palace. A big 1 to 3 points needed. And I think it is important to come away from Selhurst Park without a defeat.
Yeah, I mean, I think we like playing at Selhurst Park. I certainly quite enjoyed going to Selhurst Park. Unfortunately, too far for me to go on a Tuesday. Now I'm down in deepest, darkest Dartmoor, Freddie. But anyone who's thinking about going, definitely worth a trip to Selhurst Park. Always good fun. Yeah, I think I'd take a draw. I'd definitely take a win, of course, in any Saints game. And Edward's previous point as well about the position in the league table. We're equidistant between the European positions and the relegation zone. So we've got 6 points either.
We don't use
side.
those sort of words on this sort of show, Sean.
Mate, we've got to try and get these things in here. That's basically halfway between European and relegation in terms of points. So we're not in a bad position, not in any sense of the way. Like, you go back a month's time, the sort of conversations we're having, Freddie, were pretty dreadful. But
I mean, Welsh Gamer adds to the comment here, 30 points is like 8 or 9 places improvement.
Yeah, I mean, it's serious, isn't it? Like, that's kind of like nailed on European position. I wonder if it's that kind of like the arrogance that Ronald Koeman had seemed to kind of affect the players. Do you know what I mean? We didn't have that mental fragility when Koeman was manager. And I think Ralph is playing a really interesting style of football, and it works when the team are clicking. It's all working well. But in terms of mental fragility, we still have that there in buckets. But it's been a long few years, isn't it, Freddie?
Well, to be honest, if we talk about mental fragility, I mean, Crystal Palace showed no sign of that at the weekend, earning a point against Man City at the Etihad.
Yeah, that's true. I thought they'd blown it because they obviously had the 1-0 lead and then they were 2-1 back, but to bounce back from that, it's really, really impressive. Palace like playing against Man City, though. And they're a little bit like us in a way, Palace. They quite like playing without the ball. So, it's an interesting kind of battle, the Palace Saints, because there's two teams that don't really like playing against each other in terms of the style of the football. So for either team to win, they have to do something a little bit different from the norm. So it will be an interesting battle on Tuesday. But the evening games are always fun, and I think we often play Palace on a Tuesday or a Wednesday evening under the lights.
Well, the last couple of seasons, we've had a fairly decent record actually at Selhurst. 2 wins, 2 clean sheets as well. I want to add to that too. But Crystal Palace unbeaten in 5, albeit they've drawn the last 4, including our draw in December.
Yeah, I was looking at the Form League tables, Freddie, before this. So if you go to the last 6 matches, Saints are 4th, Palace are 12th. Last 8, Saints are 7th, Palace are 14th. Last 10, Palace are up to 7th, but Saints are 3rd. So, I mean, in terms of form, I don't think we have. We're both in pretty good form, but Saints are definitely in the better form than Palace. That's because they've been getting draws rather than wins. So maybe there's a bit of a rub of the green. I think it's going to be quite close. Palace are quite a decent side under Roy Hodgson. They're really well drilled.
Yeah, I mean, tough nut, organised unit. I mean, they showcased that. I mean, in the middle of our kind of 2 wins either side of our fixture on the 28th of December.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So Finbar adds then to the conversation, do we struggle against a physically strong forward? I mean, the last couple of seasons have almost feared the presence of Christian Benteke, but he's not had a sniff recently, hardly been in the team. And they've recently had a new addition to their forward line, Cenk Tosun on loan from Everton.
Yeah, it could be a game for him to get his first goal, Freddie.
He scored against Man City.
Oh, did he? I thought,
Yeah.
how missed that? Well, could be a game for him to get his second goal then, Freddie.
But I mean, what we can also take heart is that Luka Milivojevic, hopefully I pronounced that right.
Yeah, I think you nailed that.
I think I did. We've been practicing it. I'm not going to admit anything else. But look, third game of his suspension, sent off in the FA Cup third round against Derby. So, I mean, he scored against Saints a couple of years ago.
Yeah, he's a decent player. I'm not going to try and say his name, but he's one of the. He's a tough nut, isn't he? He gets around, he works hard, and he's the kind of player who I'm relieved when he's not on the pitch against Saints. Cenk Tosun, yeah, it'd be interesting to see what he's doing. Louis Zaha, Wilfried Zaha is the man to worry about, but James Ward-Prowse. And him have an interesting battle going back to last season's game at St Mary's, and they continued that battle at St Mary's this season. So if you're wanting to watch, if you want to see a little bit, can I swear on this, Freddie?
Go for it.
If you want to see a bit of shithousery, watch the battle between Zaha and James Ward-Prowse. You'll see two players that really, really dislike each other, really going for each other. Yeah, absolutely. James Ward-Prowse is in Zaha's head, and you can see it winds him up. And James Ward-Prowse, if he's having a good game and Saints are doing well, I think you'll see him building and building and building on that. So, yeah, that'll be a fun one to look out for on Tuesday.
Yeah, I mean, Zaha's your petulant kind of flair player. If it's not going right for him, he starts to wave his arms, to protest against the referees. But I guess what could be said is that we almost need that sort of flair player in ourselves. I mean, Kieran adds here, Palace are very defensive and are very good at it. I mean, we've seen that in the last few games of a draw. So we need a spark from the likes of Djenepo, Boufal, Redmond to give Tompkins and Sacco problems.
Yeah, I think Kieran's onto a point there. Actually, it's the players with that sort of key to unlock, well-drilled defence. Do you start with either Boufal or Djenepo? I don't know if their form necessarily dictates that they do. I think you've got to probably stick with the team that started against Wolves again. Actually,
Mark argues that Boufal and Djenepo have been off the pace recently.
Yeah, well, he's right. I mean, unfortunately, Mark is right that they have been a little bit off the pace recently, but they're two nice players to have in your back pocket. If you need to unlock a defence later onto the game, Boufal and Djenepo can do it. I'd probably prioritise Djenepo over Boufal. I thought Boufal started the season really good, but he hasn't quite got there yet.
I mean, he missed a golden opportunity against Wolves, blazing over the bar. I mean, the Six Nations are coming up. That would have been something the rugby teams have been proud of for the conversion.
Yeah, Freddie, let's not talk about that. That's shocking, wasn't it?
Maybe the pressure got to him, but right. I mean, to be honest, Saints haven't got a bad record at Selhurst recently. As I say, the last couple of wins, and I think they've only beaten us twice in the last sort of 15 fixtures at Selhurst, and we're taking a sold-out support, albeit a reduced one. I mean, we've discussed this on various different platforms and blogs elsewhere. I'm not sure why Southampton decided to take the reduced allocation when often we take nearly 3,000 every year.
I know, especially for a game in London as well. There's so many Saints fans in London. The cities are so close to each other. It's an easy trip up from Southampton to London. It's just madness. I mean, does this stuff get brought up in the fans forums? I've never been to one, but it does seem crazy.
It is an issue that is ongoing.
The big allocations, especially in games so close to Southampton, in the capital city. I mean, there must be probably, I'd have thought at least 10,000 Saints fans that live in London. Probably a lot more.
Well, it is, as I said, it is an ongoing issue with the the forums in various different outlets. Right. Okay. So we're just over half an hour then gone. Do get in touch with your lineups predictions, any score lines you want to put forward. To before we get to lineups and predictions, how is your fantasy team this weekend, John? You were
Freddie,
top of the league, weren't you?
I mean, I basically started this season really, really well. My policy of not having any Saints players in my team because I don't want to curse them didn't stop Saints players being cursed at the start of the season. The whole club seems to have a curse over them. But yeah, it's not going well. At least I didn't have Jamie Vardy as my captain this weekend. I had Kevin De Bruyne, but he didn't do much better. So
no points for Vardy, so that's a consolation.
I did have Jimenez in my side, so that was my kind of like spread betting, if you want. So I thought about taking the Wolves players out. So I was feeling quite confident before the game, but decided to leave them in just in case we lost. And so
naively, I put Stevens in my defence.
Yeah. I only have one Crystal Palace player in my team. That's Kelly, and he's going to remain on the bench on Tuesday. So, yeah.
Right.
But anyway, 51 points this week, Freddie. How did you get on?
I think I was at about 40. At least I was above average, I think. But that's I think I had points from Van Dijk. I might have had points from Salah as well. So I'm actually planning for the double game week next week. But we digress. Luke adds just quickly, Zaha is like the Antonio or Adama Traore. We can learn from us. Can we learn from our mistakes and deal with Zaha? If so, we have a chance. And to add some score predictions, Saints fan number 1, there you are again. I don't know how you judge it, but number 1 fan, there you are. 2-2, John Bob, love that. 1-1, they score first. A comeback.
Well, yeah, I mean, that'd be nice to see a comeback. Although I'd rather they just didn't concede. Never lost when we've not conceded a goal, Freddie. Yeah.
There you go. Joe adds same team again against Palace. 2-0 to Saints.
2-0 to Saints. Yeah, I think it's going to be close. It'll be one of those things. I do think we can deal with Zaha. I think we've shown that before. Perhaps by having James Ward-Prowse on him rather than maybe one of our defenders. But yeah, I think we can win on Tuesday, Freddie.
Lots of positivity actually flying in the comments. Ed adds here 2 or 3-1. How nice it'd be to see Che come on and get off the mark. I mean, he was so desperate to add to open his account this season. Finn Barr adds 2-3 Saints. Oliver adds 2-1 Saints with the same side, and Jeffrey with a little of a damp squib, a 0-0.
Oh, I've still watched good nils in the past before as well. So, hopefully be an entertaining one if Jeffrey's right.
I mean, to be honest, I mean, a point wouldn't be so bad in hindsight. I mean, won't help that Burnley won today against Leicester. We could have helped that Leicester should have won today, but Burnley have closed the gap. But we still got a cushion over the bottom 3, about 4 or 5 points still.
6 points, Freddie.
6 points. There you go. Haven't done my research. Thanks for calling me out. Right. I think I'm going to go and agree with who was it? John Bob. I'm going to go 1-1.
1-1.
What do you think?
Yeah, I can see that happening. I'm going to be a little bit more positive. I'm going to go for Saints 1-0. Clean sheet, Freddie.
Okay, I love it.
Danny Ings back on the score sheet.
Excellent. I'll make sure I captain him this week then.
Don't do that or curse it, then it won't work.
Right, okay then. That was our Crystal Palace match build-up show. John, just let us know.
You said the Crystal Maze there, didn't you, Freddie?
Crystal Maze. What's his name? Richard
E. Grant.
No, not Richard E. Grant.
No, Richard. Oh God, what's his name? He's a transgender now. That Richard.
Yeah.
What's his? I'm gonna Google this. Richard, Crystal Maze presenter. Richard O'Brien. That's
Richard
it.
O'Brien. There you go. Not Richard Ayoade. Not him. Not the new presenter. I think, is it Chris? Anyway, we digress. Look, first half team plays 2-0, Autistic Angler. Last prediction then from Harry, 2-0 Saints. One more then from Jonathan. I think Ralph might rotate a bit. Shea, Boufal, Gineppo to start, Long, Redmond and Armstrong on the bench. 1-0 Saints. There you go. Jonathan agrees with you, John. But excellent. When can we expect the podcast this week?
So we've got Tom coming back from his podcast paternity leave. So we'll be chatting on Wednesday night probably. So expect to find the podcast on your phone ready to be listened to on Thursday morning.
Great stuff. Always good to speak to you, John, and thank you so much, all of you in the comments.
Yeah, cheerio everyone.